Let's talk about that St. Louis crash, because that was like
gnarly.
potentially career ending, right?
Yeah. It wasn't a good one, that's for sure. Broke tib, fib, and then both of the ankle bones too, on like that are on the inside and outside of your foot. And I can remember afterwards, I even crashed on that same jump, punctured both lungs. As I'm laying there with my lower leg fucking all sideways, he was more of a priority than I was because of he punctured both lungs. So I'm just sitting there in the fucking gurney at the Alpenstars mobile medical unit, basically just waiting because they were attending to him because he was a higher priority than I was. But yeah, get all that kind of sorted, get to the hospital. Right before they put me under, I said, "You guys don't have consent to do surgery on me." Because we were downtown St. Louis, like fucking crackheads, like just bizarre what you see at downtown hospital like that. So I like stood up and I was like, you can stabilize it, but you're not allowed to fix it. So then that was kind of a long process. I think 4.5 months from kind of start to finish. Ended up having to fix it. I had a bus on the road at the time, so I drove from St. Louis back home, and then ended up finding a doctor actually randomly out of Seattle that I had him fix it. So then I flew up to Seattle and had him fix it. 2 different surgeries, 8 hours apiece, over a course of a week. So it was rough for a while.
So you drove the bus back, broken leg, and not you, but I mean, and that's gnarly too.
Yeah.
Like,
because I wasn't going to try to fly at that point. Like I was in too much pain and everything like that. I was like, fuck, I'll just lay in my king size bed in my bus. If I can have my uncle drive me down the road. So we made it back to California, flew up to Seattle, got it fixed, and then was just on the mend. So, and then actually, I met with Aldon. So that was when I broke it. Was maybe let's just call it 4 or 5 rounds from the end of the season ish. It was closing down to coming to the end of Supercross season, so missed all of outdoors. But I was still on crutches, and I had a meeting with Aldon at Paula. So James had it was Ricky had Aldon for many years. James hired him, won his championships. Paggio from Oakley called me and said, "Hey, I'm just letting you know that Eldon's available." And I said, "All right, do you want to meet with him?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Let's meet at Paula." So I met at Paula and then talked to him for call it 20 minutes, and hired him basically right there. If I wouldn't have hired him there, Dunge would have hired him. And then me and Aldon went through our stint, right, until I retired, and then Dunge hired him right after that. So it was going to be one between us two. Now, at the time I was just like, I'd won races. I knew that I could win races. It was the fitness side of it that was lacking. And, basically said, okay, well, I'm in. And then obviously I had to talk about, what I was going to pay him. So I'm like, oh, so what's this looking like? And he goes, okay, well, it's $350 plus $50,000 championship bonus.
Holy shit. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. The way I looked at it, the way I justified it was I'd already won, right? I had won a couple of races prior to that in 2009, and then I won a few also in 2010 before I got hurt. I'm like, well, it's $100,000 to win. So fuck, if I win 3 races, basically I can have them paid off.
So what is that? What does that cover? Just for people that don't know, like what's
this program?
Yeah,
basically I hired a babysitter. In not so many words, for me, I was the guy that I didn't necessarily mind working out, but it's not high on my priority list. Where a guy like Dunge almost had to be pulled back. He does call it too much, or maybe not the right things. Where for me, it was like I didn't do enough. So yeah, basically hired a babysitter to write the program on what, lap counts, fitness stuff, road bikes, gym, diet, all of that. So he handled kind of all of that. We lived, when I lived in Florida, Claremont, just outside Orlando, we were only a couple miles from each other. So basically 7:30 every morning, I'd see him. Like I saw him more than I saw my wife. For the 4 years that we trained together, So, but it drastically changed the outcome of my 450 career from a consistency standpoint. From it elevated all of it.
Yeah, because if you look, you had 2 wins, you get injured, you start working with Aldon, and that's when 2011's when shit just went crazy.
It did, yeah. Like, dude, I hired him. We were back in Florida. I just started walking on this on my leg, and he had lived in the current time. He had lived in Tallahassee, and we were in Claremont. So I went up to Tallahassee to kind of check out the area, and because we were just renting in Claremont, so I could kind of move around and do whatever. If I needed to move to Tallahassee, I could have. So he wanted me to move to Tallahassee, and I went up there, and I just didn't really dig it where he was, and it's way buggier up there for sure. So, and we were kind of already set up. So I'm like, hey man, I already have a track. I have this all down here. Like, why don't you consider moving to Claremont? And obviously big life adjustment for him, but he took that on, moved down to Claremont too. And then we just literally saw each other every day, after that. But like I said, when I showed to Tallahassee, like he wanted, hey, we're going to just do a little bit of stretching. I never stretched prior to this. Literally like, fuck dude, I did like 3 or 4 stretches and then pinched a nerve in my back. I fucking walked around like I was 80. And he'll tell the story and he goes, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with this guy. I just made a massive mistake taking this fucking kid on. Like I was, and part of that was just obviously coming off the leg. I was really out of shape. But when I broke this leg, I was like running around at like 178 actually that's what I am right now, 178. So I went from what I currently am to when I showed up at Anaheim 1, I was 148.
Holy shit.
So
leaned out.
Yeah, fighting,
like
ready to fight
in 4 months, so drastically changed the whole trajectory of my 450 career.
Made sure you weren't eating any French fries, stuff like that.
French fries.
No French fries.
No beer.
No beer. Oh.
So.
You ever sneak off when he wasn't looking and try to...
So dude. I was at a low, right? Like I was busted up. Yeah, I had won some races, but like at this point, like I'm like, so I followed it to the T. And he'll tell the story too. He's like, every one of you guys that whenever my phone rings for somebody like this, you guys are at the bottom of the barrel. Like you need help. So, so for the first like literally 24 months, like, didn't deviate off of it at all. Now towards 3 years into it, sure, I would add in things that weren't on his diet. But at that point I had the base, I could do that. And if that was, kind of kept me happy. Going out to an Italian joint and getting pasta and 2 glasses of wine kept me, call it sane. But I already had the base built in to where that you wouldn't even, it wouldn't affect anything. You wouldn't notice that had happened or anything like that. But, before I had hired him, that's kind of that was what I did. So you could see every chink in the armor.
Was that tough? To change like that?
It was maybe at first, just from the standpoint of like quantities, typically Americans overeat. And then, some of the quality stuff, we always ate good quality stuff, but, it's like no red meat, chicken, fish, no cheese, no table bread, things like that were huge. Don't eat after basically 8 o'clock, like 8 o'clock's like the latest, right? Like where, no snacking, things like that. So just little things. But when you take those little things and you add it onto the amount of workload that you're doing during the day, and you give yourself 3 months of that and it never breaking it, especially early on, it does a world of difference.
Yeah. And I'm sure your healing sped up like crazy and
yeah,
all that.
All of it.